Hi, welcome, and it's great to be back with you. Today, we're going to be talking about the MC360 method. And this is really about onboarding the right things in the right order at the right time when you have mast cell issues, histamine issues, sensitivities. And the reason I wanted to cover this is because many of the things that cause reactions are not because there's something wrong with that supplement, like methyl B12 or methylfolate. Those are common things for people to react to. Even sometimes we see problems with things like quercetin and curcumin, these types of supplements. It's really about the body saying, I love how Neil Nathan describes this. He says, not now. And it's about, oh, that wasn't the right timing. The other thing that's really important is to bring on the right things, things that are supportive of where you are in the process, things that are clean supplements. They don't have mast cell triggers, and some things do have mast cell triggers in them. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And this is the method that I developed after really struggling. And you guys know that mast cell activation syndrome is considered a newer condition in terms of what practitioners are learning about. So even before it was officially recognized and was still considered theoretical, I I saw this condition and said, "Oh my gosh, this is what's happening in my body." And was able to start to put this together and then test this method with hundreds and hundreds of people in our clinic, and now our courses work people through this method. But I want to give you the big picture of it so that as you're out there reading about all kinds of things, and you're probably listening to podcasts and you're listening to summits, and you guys are highly educated on these things, way more than the general public, then you can think about, okay, when I'm reading about, I'm listening to this podcast, I'm watching the summit about something like NAD or mitochondrial supports, when do I bring that on board? And this, if you don't have sensitivities, you can do those things early in. But if you have sensitivities, this can give you a framework for how to do this and when to bring things in. So it looks like we've got most people on with us, and we'll hop into our information. If you're new to our community, I want to let you know that our website's over at mastcell360.com. Tons of resources there for you. You can jump on our email list. We have courses over there, lots of free blog posts. I hope you check it out. We have a really good histamine list and some other types of foods lists like salicylates and lectins. And if you're on with me, I'd love I saw Anna said hi. Kara's with us. Jonathan's with us. Just leave me a comment in the chat and say hi. Let me know that you're here. That's the only way I can see, and I'd love to see who's here from our community. Quick things we have to go through, and that this presentation, of course, for informational educational purposes. We're not here to treat, diagnose, cure, prevent illness. Always work with your healthcare provider. If we go over any links, or you see links that are posted, some links are affiliate links. And this can mean that, I like to be full transparency, Mast Cell 360 can make a very small commission if you purchase the link. Never costs you anything extra. It does help support all of our free resources that we provide, like these Facebook Lives. And if it works for you, it does help us quite a bit, and we always really appreciate your support. Okay, and then the slides here are copyright. And our process here is trademark that we're going to talk about today. So we will do our Q&A. I'll may pick up some questions as we go along, and then I'll try to get through as many as I can at the end. Do please keep your questions on topic for the Facebook Live for what we're covering today. Please only submit your question once. That helps me to get through as many as I can. And if it's an off-topic question or an in-depth personal health question, I can't do those on Facebook Live, so I appreciate your understanding. So if I don't get to your question, this is probably why. All right, so let's look at the big picture of this method. So this method, and this was really inspired by Dr. Neil Nathan, and I trained very closely under him, so I want to give him a lot of credit for this. And then this is developed from the years in our clinic and our practice, and this is what we're now expanding, and we have a new practitioner joining us. You'll get to meet her soon. And this is the method that we're all using and getting good results. So the first step is stabilization. We need to stabilize before we detox. So why is that? Again, this is for sensitive people. The reason we need to do that is because if you're flaring and you're already up here with your symptoms and you're really uncomfortable, your mast cells are unhappy, you've got lots of inflammation, when you start detoxing, there will be some natural ups and downs, even as gentle as we can go. So if you're already at the top of what you can handle flare-wise, you don't want to start detoxing. We don't want no hercs. That's what Taylor said. We don't want to start detoxing and then we're pushing you over the cliff or over the edge. Most of the people that come into our clinic don't have room for that. You're already kind of at the end of your rope. So our process and a big place of where we get differences for people, and I hope that this helps practitioners working with all kinds of practitioners working with sensitive people, is that we start to stabilize you first before we detox, and we help to calm things down. Then once things come down a few notches, you're not going to be symptom free, but things come down a few notches, then you have a room for gentle detox. So having some of those ups and downs in this zone is way more comfortable than having them when you're already up at this very top and you don't have any bandwidth for feeling worse. So that's the method there that has worked really well. And I'm going to go into more details on each of these. Then I do see we had, sorry about the typo there on number 5. Yes, it should be optimizing. So we will get that updated. But after we do the gentle detox, this is where we clean up other pieces. I'll go into a little more detail, like I said, on each of these. But we want to generally, there's always exceptions, but generally we're going to clean up things like pathogen load, SIBO, those types of issues over here at this step 3. Then we're going to do rebuilding, things like rebuilding the gut, things like that. And then we go into optimizing, not optimizing, but optimizing. And Taylor's, I love your humor here, but Taylor's exactly right. We don't want to be herxing. So herxing, if you're not familiar with what that means, herxing means that you are getting die off. So you're killing things too fast. You're getting die off, and you'd be surprised at the things that do work as antimicrobials. Even sometimes probiotics can work as antimicrobials and help rebalance the gut. But if we have not properly done our stabilization phase, it can be too much. And then we can start to have either detox reactions or the herxing from the die-off, and that will trigger more mast cell activation. So we definitely don't want that going on. So let's look at each of these in a little more depth here. So the next place we're going to go is stabilization, looking at what this means. I talk about this all the time, and I'm giving you the context today for why I talk about these things and how it fits in the bigger picture. So stabilization, nervous system rebooting, if you've been with us for any amount of time, you've heard us talk about that. The reason is that the nervous system is intricately interconnected with the mast cells. And your mast cells actually line every nerve sheath, every nerve ending. Your mast cells are basically interwoven with your nervous system. And they're everywhere else in your body. There's a really special relationship between the mast cells and the nervous system. So if we want to calm down sensitivities, we want to calm down mast cell activation, nervous system's a beautiful place to start. We sometimes have to tailor what people do based on whether they have sound or light sensitivities or things like that. But we can find ways through this. And the 2 main areas, and you guys that have been with us for a while know this, limbic and vagal. And then the structural piece. So we have to reboot the limbic and the vagal system simultaneously, because if we only reboot one, I see this mistake a lot. People just want to do a limbic program. They don't put attention on the vagal, or they just do a vagal program. They don't put attention on the limbic. Then if we do that, you'll get your vagal system improved, but your limbic system is going to take over in monitoring for sensitivities and managing and controlling sensitivities, and the same vice versa. So that's why we have to do both. And then structural involves things like pressure on the vagal nerves, the other cranial nerves, if there's issues in the neck, which is quite common in our population. Getting things that can release those nerves in a really gentle way and help get pressure off of these vagal nerves that are signaling about whether your body is safe or whether it's in danger. And that's what this is really about, is communicating down to the cellular level that we are really safe and safe enough to heal and safe enough to detox. So remembering that if we're in sympathetic fight or flight, we can't be simultaneously parasympathetic, which is the heal mode. They're one or the other. They kind of are going to work like this in a very simple way. I know it's much more complex than that for people that know the nervous system, but we're just talking about in a very simple way. We need to be more in parasympathetic mode for healing. Then we have the emotional side, and this is a big part for a lot of us as well. This is hard to go through. This is hard stuff, and that's why we call it Mast Cell 360, and the method is MC360. So we look at the whole person, and emotional means dealing with the feelings that are coming up about, oh my gosh, the grief of what I've lost, the grief of what could have happened. I had to really work with my grief and my loss of wanting to be a neurologist and go to medical school, which I didn't get to do. I wanted to be an MD. And other people have all kinds of other griefs and losses. And processing that can also help us feel safe, as long as we process it gently. It's got to be processed with a lot of compassion and a lot of gentleness. Then if we have trauma, we need to soothe that trauma, but not always, doesn't help to rehash trauma in this phase. It helps to just soothe it. We do lots of soothing. So you guys know a lot of that, but just to recap. Mast cell calming, we've talked about that a lot. When people are ready for supplements, then it's time to bring on the first supplements that we bring on are generally things that support calming the mast cells and really calming the nervous system, which is something I can add in here. But calming the mast cells, calming the nervous system. That's where we go next with supplements. And then we support things like digestion and GI motility. And this will be, you can always go back to this video, you guys. It'll be available for you as soon as the live is over in the video section. So why do we support digestion and motility at this point? Well, one, if there's chronic constipation, that means the toxins are going to get reabsorbed. And we can't start moving into detox, or at least you don't want to move into detox if you're constipated. So you're going to have a lot of toxin buildup in the gut. That'll be very agitating to the gut, and it'll just get reabsorbed in the bloodstream. So we have to address issues with constipation before we can detox. And then we support digestion the best that we can, depending on what somebody can tolerate and handle, and everything has to get customized, right? But helping if it seems like there are digestive issues with breaking down food, because that's very agitating to the GI tract that can play into chronic diarrhea or constipation. So this is about peeling back layers over time. Then we really work on cleaning up the triggers in this phase. So cleaning up things like environmental mold exposures. And we have a lot of Facebook Lives on all of these things for anybody looking for more details, all of the stabilization phase. And we work on cleaning up other triggers of this phase. Some people are really EMF sensitive. Not everybody is, but some people may need that. We look at making sure we've got good, clean water, that we've got air that's purified. Some areas, there's a lot of issues with forest fire smoke in the summers, or there's pollen issues. There can be off-gassing chemicals. And it's surprising how much we see show up in urine testing on chemical toxins that are water-based. And where people have a water filter, they think it's a good filter. And we check those chemical toxins and we're seeing things that are waterborne in there. And it tells us, oh, that filter might just be old, it might be failing, or it might not be as diligent about getting some of these things out as we need. So it gives good info to do that. And then food-based chemicals, most of the people that we work with in the clinic have already done quite a bit in cleaning up their diet. But if there are things like food dyes, food colorings, preservatives, we look at cleaning up the diet, things like even Roundup in conventional produce. And there was a study, I don't know if anybody else has seen this, that showed that eating fruits and vegetables, if you eat all conventionally, because of the load of the toxins on those that are highly sprayed, it offset the increase in fruits and vegetables, the toxins did, and there wasn't any improved health benefits from eating a lot of conventional fruits and vegetables as you get in eating organically. So as much as you can, I know some people it's too expensive and to eat all organic, and it certainly was for me at a point in my life where I had very limited income. But doing that Clean 15 list, you can just search Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen and find the ones that are really important to make sure that they're not sprayed. So these are going to be things like strawberry. Well, we're not eating strawberries. It's, if you have histamine tolerance, but if you do eat strawberries, cherries, apples, collard greens, kale, some of these are some of the foods that are heavily sprayed. Keep an eye on. And then other chemicals that might be involved. This can be in terms of skincare, fragrances, and like plugins, things like that. Other types of triggers for people. So this is part of that stabilization. And then going to the edge of the stabilization phase, once people are ready for it, it's about supporting sleep. And then we'll start supporting adrenals and hormones. So this is our method. We'll do that after we've supported the mast cells in the nervous system. That's where this comes in the process. So if you're looking at when do I do hormone balancing, when do I start working on the adrenals, get your mast cells calmed down in this method. Get the mast cells calmed down, the nervous system calmed down, and then start to work with that. Now we do find, and I think expectations are really important, we do find that getting hormones and adrenals in a really good state is usually a process for a while. So things are kind of continue to shift, especially if they're mold toxins. And you have to keep tinkering and balancing, tinker and balance. And that's where keeping an eye on symptoms and keeping an eye on some of that testing can be helpful. All right, so then our next phase, our step 2, is our gentle detox. So how do we do that? And if you followed our mold information, you've seen this before, the order that we do things in. Now, there's lots of ways to detox and there's lots of methods. So I'm not saying this is the only way. There's lots of ways, and it's important that we have lots of ways. So we have, again, the right things in the right order, and it's going to depend on who you are. But if you're a sensitive person, you're dealing with mast cell issues, this is a really good method for you. So what we do is we bring on the binders first. Now we've already come through the stabilization phase, and we've made sure to address constipation. Then we can bring on binders. We work on liver and lymph supports. Why do we do it after binders? Because when we're working on things like lymph support, we're going to be moving toxins out of the tissues, and we want to have those binders to capture it. It's also why we do kidney and lymph supports. And then if we think we need methylation supports like methyl B12 and methylfolate, those types of things, this is when we would bring it on. After binders, after we get a little kidney, liver support, lymph support on board. That's not always brought on board. Some people are still way too sensitive for that. But if we're going to try it, we would do it here. Very low dose, just very little bits. And we don't want to push methylation too hard because it's going to push detox. There's a lot of other downstream things that happen with methylation. So that can get more thoroughly supported when we get into the optimization phase. And I'll show you that. Then we bring on the antimicrobials and the biofilm supports at this phase. So just to recap, the reason that we do it this way, and some protocols will start you with antimicrobials and do the binders last. They do it backwards from what we have here. We do it this way because when we start killing things off in step 5 and 6 here, they're going to release toxins, whether we're talking about mold toxins, we're talking about viruses, bacteria, whatever is being addressed, there will be release of toxins as things are dying. In the process we found for sensitive people, it's much better to make sure the GI tract is working. We're getting that daily elimination, daily bowel movement. And then we've got those binders to catch those toxins. And we've got the liver system, kidney liver system supported to be able to process what's being released here by the dying off of these microbes. So that's why we do it in this order. And we're supporting the detox pathway from the end back. So we're going backwards in the detox process. So we're opening things up. We're opening things up to allow for the load that's coming. And then let's go next to cleanup. So then we clean up remaining pieces, especially if we've got mold toxins, and that's a lot of what we deal with. And we found that that's the number one root trigger in the types of clients that we're dealing with, and it's become epidemic. It's amazing. A lot of people think there's no way it could have mold toxicity, and then we find it. And I'm not saying that that is 100% of everybody. I don't have many absolutes, but we see it so frequently. So that puts such a load on the detox system, on the immune system, on the gut, the microbiome. We want to get that huge load out. And it's so much easier to address things like SIBO. This is where we can start to get the hormones, instead of kind of following them, or adrenals, we can get things really rebalanced. We can clean up remaining sleep issues. And then this is where you would deal with bacterial, viral, and parasitic loads and so on. And about 99% of the time, there's always exceptions to this. So of course, if you have acute Lyme and you were just bitten by a tick, you want to get in with a Lyme specialist and address that pretty quickly. But we're talking about if it's been chronic, it's been there for a long time. If it's Epstein-Barr, for example, and we haven't found, once we get the mold toxins out, people recover from Epstein-Barr. We haven't found we had to go after it individually and directly. So usually that's getting cleaned up and supported somehow in what we're doing in the earlier stages. Now, it may come a time where that changes, but that's what it's been so far. And parasitic loads. This is if they're, generally chronic, lower grade. Usually the body will clear parasites once you get mycotoxins out. It's quite interesting. But of course, if you had Giardia or dysentery, or, well, that's bacterial, but if you had a any kind of acute bacterial or parasitic issue, you would deal with that if that's acute. Okay, so don't let those things go on. If you have a tapeworm and you're really underweight, or you've got Giardia and you've got that chronic daily diarrhea or Clostridia, this would be for those low grade issues. Okay. Then we go into rebuilding. And at this point, so we've been cleaning up remaining pieces. We've gotten the big toxin load out. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me step back one second. This is also where we would work on metals. I know somebody's going to ask me about metals. So we would generally put that one step under here. So we would work on them usually kind of in this order. Metals are the harshest thing to detox. And a lot of times, if you get mold toxins out of the way and you would deal with these microbial loads, then the body, a good chunk of the time, can clear the metals on their own. But some people do have a high metal load and they may need to be cleared at that point. Then we can rebuild when we don't have mold toxins just tearing up the gut, and we can get SIBO handled. Then if there's anything left with the microbiome to balance or the gut lining, that's much easier. And this is where we're going to start bringing in mitochondrial supports in a bigger way. Sometimes we'll do a little bit earlier in, small amounts, but then the mitochondrial supports we can do in higher dosing here. And I really wanted to share this with you all today because I know so many of you are so sensitive, and it's easy to think, well, I'm never going to be able to do those things. I'm not going to be able to detox or do mitochondrial supports. And I just wanted to show you that with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, when we've gone through this process, they can get there at some point. And this is where we can usually get things like bone health back in a good shape. Sometimes we'll do some supports early in, then we can go with those better. And for sensitive people, this is where we bring in those higher amounts of minerals that they didn't tolerate earlier in. Okay, then optimizing. Somebody asked about genetics. We will take a look at genetics earlier in, and we can use the genetics to show us where somebody's weak point is. So, for example, somebody might have a weak point on the IL-6 genes, which are an interleukin-6. That's a type of mast cell cytokine. Or they may have particular genetic variants with histamine tolerance, and we can see where that might be in the pathway. Fortunately, that is more of an issue with expression, and things like mold toxins are going to affect that expression, and that the genetics will show us where that's more likely happening. And then we have to also look at what's actually going on for this person. Our genes are not a life sentence, which is the wonderful thing to know. Now, there are some genetic diseases, they're very rare, and that's different. But for people who don't have those really rare genetic diseases, the types of genes that we're talking about with these mast cell genes, these histamine genes, for the vast majority of them, the expression can be greatly improved. So early in, we'll take a look and see, should we be paying more attention to this pathway? Or maybe it has to do with detox. And we're going to take a look and go, this glucuronidation pathway may need some extra help during this process. Let's get it some extra help. Once we've cleared this load, though, then we can do what's called genetic optimization. And this is taking a look at the genes as a whole and seeing, are there those ApoE genes that have a role in cognitive decline? Then you bring on a good bit to support that. Are there genes that have to do with cleaning up the pathway called autophagy, that's cleaning up cancer cells and cells that are turning over, dead cells, and cleaning up pathogen loads? What do we want to support for this person long term for their life to really optimize their health? So this is a whole different program than when we're getting through things like detox. And then some people may have some other concerns in there, and we'll take a look here. All right, so I know there's a good number of questions that have come in. Let me take us back to, well, first, just a reminder here that, again, for people that came on later, that we're going to do our Q&A. Do please keep your questions on topic for what we've been covering, which is really about the order of operations we do things in, about how do we do the right things at the right time in the right order. And do please only submit your question once. If I don't get to it, it's probably because it's off topic, or it's an in-depth personal health question, or it may have come in and too late. We're running out of time here. But let's get to as much as we can. So backing up, Here's our overview process. And we did realize we had a spelling error. Should be optimizing. Yes, there are replays available. So you can watch this anytime you want on the videos page. And Jonathan's asking, why would people react to methyl B12 and methylfolate? So this is really common, and methyl B12 and methylfolate are often done at high doses. And for people that don't have a lot of sensitivities, probably just fine. And what we're talking about here today are for the sensitive people that are in our population here. Methylation is going to push detox, and it's going to accelerate your detox. So if you're accelerating your detox and you still have constipation, for example, then you're going to get too much toxins building up that you can't clear out. And that'll put you in a toxic state. And that's the whole premise of Neil Nathan's book, Toxic. We don't want to be sitting in that toxic soup. We've got to be clearing things out. Just think about, you don't want to let your garbage in your kitchen keep building up faster than you can take it out. It's going to make your kitchen smelly. It's not going to be pleasant to be in, and it can make you sick. So this is also why we don't want to push through detox reactions, because if we are having a detox reaction or a Herx reaction, whichever it is, those toxins are causing damage, and they can cause nervous system issues. They can increase mast cell activation. They can set off mast cell cascades. So I don't find it helpful in our sensitive population to push through those. And I find that can really set people back. So this is why we're all about slow and steady and a smooth, gentle process. So that's one of the reasons people can react, Jonathan. Another is some people are what are called over-methylators. They can have too many methyl groups, and then this can make them feel agitated, anxious. There's a number of other reasons, but those are just a couple of the reasons why people can react to those. All right, let's see what other questions that we have. And it's great to see people from all over. We've got the UK and lots of different states, Tennessee. Okay, and then Leslie, for your off-topic question, probably better if you could send that in Facebook Messenger, if you don't mind. Okay, John's asking about binders. Would taking a binder make us lose electrolytes? So one of the supplements that are commonly used in the stabilization phase is a very simple electrolyte formula. And it depends on people's cases, which one we pick. This is part of our method that our practitioners will use. And binders don't usually cause loss of electrolytes, but mold toxins greatly do. And you want to look at things like blood pressure and different things. So with mold toxicity, I do find that we often need some kind of electrolyte. Other types of toxins, we need some electrolytes, but it has more to do with that. The binders, there were studies on animals, and mold toxins are a huge issue in animal feed, whether we're talking about dog food, we're talking about cattle feed, chicken feed, or whatever. Huge, huge issue. So they put binders in those foods, and there were studies looking at feeding them extremely high doses, what we would never take, like a pound of charcoal a day. And they measured the nutrient statuses before and after, and there wasn't nutrient change in doing those binders, which is good news. So I know it's all over online, but I used to be quite concerned about binders binding up nutrients, but we're not finding that, fortunately. And we haven't seen that just show up clinically. Okay, so then we've got a question here. And what do we do if Bartonella gives us nasty excitatory inflammation in the central nervous system? Yes, how do we calm this without treating the Bartonella? It's a great question. So we find that what we do in a stabilization phase can be very helpful for that. And that sometimes needs to be tailored, but doing some of the nervous system work can help. doing things that are soothing, supplements, depending on what you tolerate. Of course, I don't know your case, so I can't make any specific recommendations, but a practitioner can look at this with you and help you. And this is common. I just want to let you know this is really common, this kind of excitatory inflammation. And there are lots of different things, all from magnesium L-threonate to Gotu-Kola tea, different types of supplements that can help with this excitatory inflammation. And then sometimes if it's really intense, you may overlap the detox. Once you've got your whole mold protocol going, at some point it'll be clear to your practitioner it's time to start going after that Bartonella. And you may not be entirely done with mold when you do that, and that's okay. But you would usually, this is a chronic condition, you want to clear some of that mycotoxin load before you go after the Bartonella. And it'll be much easier before you go after it with antimicrobials. But you're exactly right. You can start to calm it, and it can make it easier. Shan was asking if I could post a link to the article about the pesticides and organic versus conventional. I will try to find it. I need to have a database of articles, and I read so many articles, and sometimes I lose them. So I'm hoping one of my next initiatives is going to be to get a database together where I can keep track of all these things. But I'll see, Shan, if I can pull it up, and if I can, we'll get it posted for you. Okay, John was asking, is there a lymph supplement you love? I don't usually do lymph supplements. There are some. I know some people use things like red root, which is also called Dang Shen with a G. It's different from Dan Shen, but Dang, D-A-N-G, Shen, is sometimes used. A lot of times we'll do gentle movement, depending on what somebody can tolerate. Sometimes people can do some really, really gentle, basic lymphatic drainage, self-massage. Just depends case to case. And then, of course, plenty of water. Walking, if you can walk, is really important. Getting some daily movement, whatever you can do. Okay, Brenda, we've got a bunch of different things on constipation you can check out. And that one's super specific to each person. So I'm not real sure what to let you know there, but do check out some of our resources on the page. And then John is also asking, how do we manage the inflammation that detoxing produces? So there is, this is why we do the stabilization first. So if we do the stabilization first, we should have a good bit on board that is going to calm those mast cells down and help them stay calmed down. Then if somebody starts detoxing and there's more inflammation, you can slow the detox down, or sometimes I find that we have to bump some of the nervous system supports and the mast cell supports during the detox process, and that's an individual one. But you can bump some of those mast cell supports. You can increase your nervous system activities, the time in there. So there's lots of ways you can work with that. Okay, let me see. Rosemary, been learning a lot from you on what to do. Is there a real need to do your advanced or basic courses? Okay, so I think you're talking about the mold course, Rosemary, where we have the basic version or the advanced version. So if you go onto the website, mastcell360.com/mold-course, and then go down that page, and you're going to see a video, and I go over the differences between those. That'd be great to take a look at to see if that would help you to have the advanced one. The advanced one, if you have a practitioner who knows the stuff really well, then you probably don't need the advanced one. If you're trying to figure it out on your own, or you're just a health geek and like a lot of people here, and you want all that in-depth info, then that's the time to think about it. But just watch that video. That'll help you. And then if you do upgrade, Rosemary, since you have the basic there, you can just upgrade. You don't have to purchase the advanced completely separately. So if you go down that FAQ, it'll tell you how to upgrade. Okay, let's get to this one. What if our approach, and what is approach if Lyme and Bartonella on top of mold is inflaming the neurological system? Yes, so there's one important first question, which is, are the Lyme and the Bartonella acute? Did you just get bitten by a tick, just contract this in the last few weeks? If so, then that may increase the priority. But if this has been going on a long time, what we found, and a lot of this that I'm talking about with the order with mycotoxins, Lyme and Bartonella, comes from my training with Dr. Neil Nathan, is that if this has been there for a long time and it's chronic, if you get the mold layer out first, then about 30 to 40% of people will actually clear Lyme and Bartonella on their own. And then the ones who don't, if you at least get some of the mold layer out, it's much easier to address the Lyme and Bartonella at that point because your immune system can kick back in and work more effectively to help support you. So that's the general method, but you still, if you're dealing with these, definitely want to be working with a practitioner who is going to help guide you in this and help you support you in making the right decisions for you. So there aren't any absolutes. This is just big picture for most sensitive people. All right, Edward's asking, why would you not use lymph and kidney supports before using binders? Wouldn't that follow under the supplement stage before detox? So your liver and kidneys work optimally to remove toxins. So there are some that you can do, and certainly like making sure you're drinking enough water, that should be happening here, support those kidneys. You could do some really gentle kidney support. The main thing, though, is that we don't want to push more toxins out of the tissues. We don't want to do heavy lymphatic drainage before we have binders on board because we're going to be pushing those toxins in the bloodstream. They're going to get dumped through the GI tract and the kidneys. And then they can recirculate if we're not using those binders, or they can really disrupt the kidneys and the GI tract. So these mold toxins, and that's a lot of what we're seeing, these mold toxins are really toxic. People underestimate how toxic they are. They're quite toxic to the kidneys. They're quite toxic to the GI tract, the liver, the immune system, the nervous system. These are really nasty. So that's where we just want to be careful to not push too much into the system before we can clear it out. Now, there are, Edward, plenty of nuances in here, and this isn't set in stone. So some people may need things tweaked for them, and that's certainly okay. I'm just trying to simplify it so people who are watching summits, listening to all kinds of podcasts can just think about this big picture view. Some of the questions are great questions in here, but they are a little too detailed. I'm going to hit this at a very high level, Rosemary, but I can't go into protocols. Sometimes this has to be addressed, and sometimes the body can start to clear it. It depends on how acute it is or if it's chronic. If it's really acute, I would work with a practitioner because it just depends on the case. Okay, so we're just doing the big picture in terms of this kind of order of supports. We will get into in the future more things about mitochondrial supports, but I can't get into protocols today, you guys. Let's see, let me find my spot again. Okay. So Anna, we've got a whole blog post on sleep, so you can go over and take a look at that. Again, I can't do the protocols here, but I can do the big picture, doing things in the right order at the right time. We do, Shan, do gentle exercise, whatever's tolerated. Gentle exercise is really important to keep things moving. That's a great lymph support. And we have to keep it in the realm of what somebody can tolerate based on their energy levels. And some people have pretty intense adrenal fatigue, so we don't want to push into feeling fatigued or really tired. But we do want to move where we can. Some people can do gentle walking. I've had people who were bedridden, and so they would just do things that they could do in bed, and they would have somebody move them passively. Other people can get out and they can go for hikes and runs, so it just depends on what you can do. Some people can bounce a little on an exercise ball, but anything to keep you moving is very important, very helpful. As long as you stay under that threshold of feeling really tired. Okay, so Tracy has a question here. With the super sensitive, and I know you wrote patient, I'm going to say client just because we have a consulting practice, so we say clients. When are the mast cells considered stable to where the next step can happen? It's a case-by-case thing, but you're looking for some relief and stability in the system. So you're looking for some resiliency, and that means that we don't feel like there's daily reactions to everything. It means that trying to think of how to put this for you, Tracy. It means that the symptoms have just come down to where every day is not a super bad day. We may still not feel great. We're not having super bad days every day. And can we come down, 15, 20%? Maybe we think about it that way. And what that looks like is very different person to person. So what that looks like for somebody who's having mild reactions, very different than somebody who's bedridden. But looking for some improvement to where we could start to get some binders on board without causing major flares. So I hope that gives you a little bit of information. I can't get super specific just because it's so different from person to person. Okay, so some people are asking who can help with gadolinium. You could look, Carol, at some of the work done by Lynn Patrick. She has a lot of good information on gadolinium. You might look her up. I don't know if she consults or if you have to see her in person, but she's one of the top experts I know in that area. All right, let me see if we have any questions that are specific about the order of operations here. We've got a lot of questions that are really about protocols here. Okay, so just some bigger picture things. Jonathan's asking, do you find that when we were detoxing, our sweat will stink more? Yes, if you do sweat, you may find strange smells with your sweat. You may find that you start sweating more. And I've had people who had all kinds of odd smells. I've had very strange breath in the morning, and people have reported really interesting smells to sweat. Urine, bowel movements may smell strange. And then some people don't sweat. We had another question about that. Some people don't sweat, and that is generally going to come back as your health is improving, but you can still start to detox even if you're not sweating. But that's really, really common for people to stop sweating at some point. It does come back, and then it feels like a welcome change when you realize that your shirt's soaked underneath your arms. And I feel really grateful now every time that I get sweaty, because I didn't sweat for years, even if I was in a 110-degree sauna. Okay, I think we've hit most of the questions. I'm going to hit two others Rosemary's asking, are the combination binders too much? Again, depends on the case. And the key for me is making sure that we're really targeting the types of toxins with the right binders that we know work for them. And then Dana's asking the best time to do a binder. It's really any time that works for you. So if you go over to our blog and read about binders, you'll see that we want to get them in about an hour before or 2 hours after medications or supplements. I used to worry about it with food. I've really loosened up on that because we're not seeing it bind nutrients in food, fortunately. But anytime that works for you. Some people do it first thing in the morning. Some people do it at bedtime. Some people do it between lunch and dinner in the afternoon. Or if you take things during those times, some people hit a window between dinner and bedtime. It's just keeping away from those medications, those supplements with that time frame. Okay, you all, I'm so glad you were on here with us. And we are going to have a special bonus Facebook Live for you on Saturday. We initially were planning on doing it today, but the scheduling ended up not working out. So this coming Saturday, which is going to be, let me look at calendar, July 16th at 1 o'clock Eastern. So July 16th at 1 o'clock Eastern, we've got a bonus special Facebook Live all about onboarding supplements when you're a sensitive person. Lots of tips and tricks and things that you may not have ever thought about. And the reason we're doing it Saturday is I wanted for you guys to get to meet our new nurse practitioner consultant, Beth Ann Robinson, who's coming on to our team. I'm super excited about her having her join us. And she's going to share lots of her tips and tricks. She's been through all this herself. She's been really, really ill. And all 5 of her children were quite sick. So and they've all recovered and are doing really well. But she picked up all kinds of other tips and learned a lot of things about getting things on because her children were extremely sensitive. So we're going to share those with you and share some of our top and favorite things for what do we do if we're having trouble taking supplements. How are we going to find a way to move forward with them? So I think you'll find some fun info. And I thought on Saturday, maybe more people could join us. If you can't make it live, just like this video and all of them, it'll be available. The replay will be available right afterwards, and you can come back on and catch it at any point after that. But Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, if you can join us, it's going to be all about onboarding supplements for sensitive people, tips and tricks. There's going to be some things I have not covered before, and you'll get to meet Beth Ann Robinson, which I'm excited about. So great to be with you guys. Have a wonderful week. Be really gentle. Take good care of yourselves. And no matter what happens, the most important thing is you keep going, keep trying, different step. And if what you're doing is not working, back up and do something different, but just to keep finding ways to go forward. All right, we'll see you hopefully on Saturday, and we'll be back Monday with our regular Facebook Live as well.